You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey, this is Jeff Belanger, author, researcher for Ghost Adventures, host of New England Legends, and of course, beer drinker. And you're listening to PSH Radio with Sam and Carl on the Parasearch Network. They're broadcasting to you from Old England. You can tell by the accents.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, it is PSH Radio here with your weekly Thursday show. It is a bit hot this evening, well, it has been all day, because we are currently going through a heat wave in the UK. I know, shocking, right? I am obviously joined by, as always, and we had this guest on a few months back, I believe, and obviously his name is Rob Gutro. Good evening, Rob. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you today? I'm
good, apart from obviously this heat wave.
Are you in air conditioning?
No, I don't have aircon.
Oh, okay, that's not good. No. Quick, go open the freezer and put your...
So obviously we've got you on again because we obviously when we last had you on, we obviously talked about the work you do in the paranormal and things like that, and obviously we talked about a few of your books, and obviously we got you back on to about your two books on the Pets in the Afterlife.
Yes, Pets in the Afterlife and Pets in the Afterlife 2. And actually, I'm writing a third Pets in the Afterlife book for next year.
Wow. So we'll have to have you on that again.
Well, there's a lot of pets that have a lot to say.
Yeah. So what gave you this idea of writing these particular books?
Well, first of all, I'm a medium and I'm also a paranormal investigator. So for the folks that are listening, I investigate human ghosts as well, ghosts and spirits who have crossed over, and ghosts who are earthbound. But it was 2005 that I got my inspiration to write about the books, because I had a puppy and his name was Buzz, and he was tragically killed by a car when I was out walking him one day. And Buzz became the world's best canine communicator from the afterlife. He was amazing. So and I've known I've had this ability since I was a kid, but I really never used it a lot. I was just too busy with things. So, but Buzz started coming through like crazy, and so I realized what was happening, and I started writing all these things down, and making note of it. So after writing these things down for a couple of years, I thought, there are so many people who are grieving the loss of their pets that it would probably be really helpful to them to know many of the ways that their pets communicate from the other side. So that was the inspiration.
A very good inspiration, that is. And I don't know if there is many books out there on Pets in the Afterlife, so.
Well, I'll tell you, I actually, when I wrote the first Pets in the Afterlife book in 2013, it was actually the first one, and now there's like 10 or 12 of them. So everybody decided that they were going to do it. But it's all about really bringing comfort to people that lost pets, because we have 4 dogs, and our pets are they're our kids, they're our children.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's interesting is that I'm also a scientist, and I'm a meteorologist, which is why I enjoy talking about heat waves. But when I was writing my books, I also looked at the scientific side of things, and that includes the behavior of dogs, the intelligence of dogs. I use dogs as a baseline, although all of these books apply to cats and horses and really any animal that's domesticated that lives with people, because they can communicate with people from the other side. So I looked at the intelligence of dogs, and I read a lot of books by Dr. Stanley Coren, and so he's a couple books called The Intelligence of Dogs and How Dogs Think. And he concluded that dogs, because he has dogs, have the intelligence of a 3 to 5 year old human child. Do either of you have dogs? I can't remember.
Yeah, I have one dog and Carrie has a dog, but but yeah, I have a dog.
Okay, so I mean, they behave like kids.
Oh yes, mine does anyway.
So, yeah, and so there's so many levels of intelligence, and because there are, they have the ability to communicate with us from the other side. So I want you to think about this for a second. Because you have a dog, they're intelligent in a number of ways. Like, they know routine. It really takes a smart person to learn routine. Like if you start a new job, for instance, and you have to learn the routine of doing one thing at one time and then doing another thing at another time, and you have to do them in order. So dogs learn that. They learn routine. I mean, if you've ever missed your dogs or you're late with serving your dog dinner or breakfast,
Mm-hmm.
they let you know it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that takes intelligence to know that stuff. The other thing too is that there's intelligence required for game playing. They have nurturing instincts. They're social. They're certainly sociable animals. So they have to understand. They have to learn how to get along well with other dogs. There's all of these factors to their intelligence. And that's how they're able to communicate. I mean, they learn words, right? They know their name.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes. It sounds like you have a stubborn breed in your house. What kind of a dog do you have?
Jack Russell Cross Yorkshire Terrier.
Okay, so Jack Russells are pretty smart. So he's probably just fooling you.
Probably.
He probably just rules the roost.
Yeah. Yeah, she does.
Yeah. But they really do have intelligence on a lot of levels, and so by understanding words, they're able to convey words back to a medium like me. They also know numbers because they hear us talk about numbers. So, for instance, I received an email from a woman who lost her dog, and she said she asked me a couple of questions about her dog on the other side and so forth, and she said, "Can you get in touch with my dog and confirm that it's him?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." So I gave her a number of messages, and one of the most important messages that stuck out was the number 723. So I sent her that, and I said, I don't know what this number means to you, or if it means anything, but your dog is really stressing the number 723. Well, it turns out that 723 is a date that was relevant to her dog, a personal date. That was that was the year, the month, and the day rather, that her dog was diagnosed as having cancer. So that's when her life changed and her dog's life changed.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's amazing that they can convey, that something like a number that has such a personal meaning to it. So, the other interesting thing too is that as a scientist, I'm really interested in proving to people that dogs and cats have the same emotions we do. Certainly, if you've had 2 or 3 animals and one of them passes, the others will show depression, just like people do. Have either of you experienced that?
No, but obviously, I did have 2 dogs at one point, and I had to rehome one, and obviously I noticed that the other dog obviously got depressed because her friend wasn't there.
So you can see the behavior difference.
Yeah,
and my dog as well. When we lost the cat, because I had a kitten, and they snuggled up and stuff, and after he passed, then my dog displayed miserableness, shall we say?
Yeah, so they really do. So, and they grieve just like we do, and that's so important to understand that they have the same emotions that we do. I mean, they're happy. When you come home, they can be sad. They can be angry, just like we are. They can be scared. If you come home and you're mad and you rant and rave that traffic was really bad, they usually go in the other room or they go cower in a corner until you calm down.
So when you say they experience emotions, are they, because I always thought it was like with animals in the physical, they were just running on instinct, and it's easiest for them. They know where they're going to get food. And like you said about routine, they're very trainable. They're very eager to please, aren't they? But in regards to the emotional spectrum, is it as broad a spectrum as we feel, or is it more black and white? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And the answer, what I've found by not only reading but also observing my dogs too, is that it's the same spectrum that we have as humans. You'll see in animals that are together that sometimes they get jealous of the other one. Mm-hmm. They don't want one of the other ones to get the same amount of attention. I see that with our new dog that we adopted. He's 11 years old from a rescue. He gets jealous whenever our 8-year-old dog comes over and wants to get like a rub down or wants me to play with him. So the other dog runs over and puts his face right near my face. He's jealous. I had a reading from a dog. I think I wrote about this in my first Pets in the Afterlife book. His name is Poopy. That's his actual name. And his dad, John, wrote me about him and wanted to know how he was. And so one of the messages that Poopy gave me was that he had a favorite squeaky toy, a favorite yellow squeaky toy. And he said that he absolutely did not want the other dog in the house to have it and to play with it. Mm-hmm. So I wrote this to John. I got an email from John, and I said, first of all, I don't even know if you have another dog in the house. I said, secondly, I don't even know if your dog had a yellow squeaky toy. And he wrote me back and he said, yes, Poopy's favorite toy was a yellow squeaky toy, and he always kept it away from our other dog named Charlie. So he said he could totally understand why Poopy doesn't want Charlie to have that toy even after he passed.
It's still my toy. I might not be there, but it's still my toy.
That's right. It's still his toy, and it's always going to be his toy. So he wanted him to keep the toy, but he wanted him to keep it away from Charlie. So animals do have the same exact emotions as people do. Maybe not to the extreme that we do, because we have spoken language, but they don't need a spoken language. So one of the interesting two facets about the emotional spectrum is that there's a neurologist down at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was sick and tired of hearing people say that animals have no souls, because that's just stupid. And as you can tell, that's something I'm really passionate about. So I always tell people that a soul is memories, personality, and knowledge. and that combines with the energies that are within us, and that's what becomes either an earthbound ghost, if we choose to stay earthbound, or a spirit that has crossed over. So that's what a soul is. So, of course, animals have souls. They have memories, personality, and knowledge, and they have emotions. So he said that he was really tired of people asking that dumb question. So he took his dog and the other dogs from his laboratory, his coworkers, and they trained them to sit still for an MRI. Have either of you had an MRI?
No.
Okay. It's magnetic resonance imagery. That's what and I'm impressed that I even remember what it stands for.
Should have just gone with MRI, because we're still a bit baffled as to what that is. I've heard the term in medical use, obviously, but I actually don't know what one is.
Okay, so what it is, it's kind of like an X-ray, but you have to lay still for like 20 minutes on a metallic bed, and then you're pushed into this large, what looks like a cave. It slides into a kind of a cave that goes over you, and then it takes magnetic imagery of your insides. And you have to stay still, perfectly still, for 20 minutes. So I've had 2 MRIs, and they're really uncomfortable.
I can imagine, because it's like you're very aware, aren't you? But how does that work? Because your blood's always moving and everything. You can't stop that, can you? That sounds like a really stupid question. I know.
So you just can't. You just can't move your arms and legs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So you have to stay still that way. So he trained his dog and other dogs to stay perfectly still for 20 minutes so they could do an MRI and scan their brains.
Oh, okay.
And the reason he did that is that so the pet parent would go up to the dog and they would scan the brain, and they would see how the brain operates when the pet parent goes, and then a complete stranger would go over and they would scan the brain. And what they found was the caudate, the section of the brain that registers love in humans, does the same exact thing in pets. So it lit up when the pet parent went over to the dog in the MRI. And it did not light up when the stranger went over to the dog in the MRI. So he proved scientifically that animals have the same exact emotional response that people do. Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. I'd like to read more about that study. Where could I find it?
It's Dr. Gregory Burns, Berns, and the book is called How Dogs Love Us, I believe. It came out in 2013.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you talk to a scientist. I'm a big geek, so...
Well, I know, but that's the bit that I find fascinating, the science side of it, actually backing up the fact that, we have got evidence that this is a thing. They're not just creatures that we can... So would this work with every creature? So when you're working psychically, do you get like all sorts of different creatures come through, or only animals that have had a connection to a human?
Does
that make sense?
It does, and the answer is only animals that have had the human connection, only domesticated animals, because they live with us, so they learn from us. And because they learned from us, they're able to communicate that information back to us. So somebody asked me, can you communicate with a lion in the zoo? And the answer is no, because, a lion doesn't know our words. A lion doesn't know, where we go to bed at night. A lion doesn't, lions don't know anything about us. They live in their own world. So no, only domesticated animals, and that includes horses. I mean, because we talk to horses and so forth, and rabbits. People have asked me to talk to snakes on the other side, which I'm not comfortable doing, but I'll do it anyway.
I'd do a bit of Harry Pottery there, I would think, with snakes. Speak parcel tongue. What about cows? Can you Do you get cat? I know this sounds like a really weird question, but I interviewed someone once and they were on an investigation and they were adamant that they saw ghosts of cows. And it's a topic we have discussed before about whether or not it is this human connection or... and the argument was a farmer would be connected to his herd. We're talking back in the day, not so much today's farming methods, but back in the day, they all had names, didn't they? And, you know, the old style milking cow. So, and they were adamant they'd seen this cow. And I was like, you know, like when your brain's like, doesn't sound plausible. But I'm asking you, as somebody who can connect in that way, is that possible?
Well, if farmers pay enough personal attention to cows and they're around them all the time and they talk to them and they show them emotion and so forth, sure, a cow can come through and give messages back. But if they're just, you know, wild or in a herd and they don't have that human interaction, no, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay. So it's very dependent on that human connection then. The stronger the connection, the more likely you are to be psychically connected to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when sorry, Sam, carry on. Sorry, I got carried away.
I know what she's like when she gets
Sorry.
That's all right. So obviously with you having that much amazing connection with dogs, Rob, do you find that you have dogs come through more than, say, like cats?
No, it's really 50-50, to be honest with you. And honestly, since I published my book in 2013, I get emails every week from around the world. And people are asking about either cats or dogs or, like I said, rabbits or various other animals that they may have as domesticated pets. But so no, cats communicate very well. So more.
May I ask, with cats, they're very independent, aren't they? In normal life, you know, like in day-to-day life, they'll do what they want. And although you can train them, it's only if they want to. Because if they don't want to, then they're not going to. Right? Are they very much like that, or do they express more of an emotion when they've passed? Because you don't really get that sometimes, do you, with cats?
They're very much the same way as they are when they're alive in the physical.
Okay.
So, yeah. So they can be, you know, they have the same behaviors. So don't expect anything different. Certainly when you get a message from the other side from your cat. But they will, you know, they do recognize words and they do recognize numbers and they do recognize the energy change within us, like on birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays, because we always tend to get more excited around those times. And that's usually when spirit comes to visit us. That's when we have to pay attention. And that could be the anniversaries, by the way, could be like the anniversary of their adoption, the anniversary of their passing, things like that.
So when they communicate with you, do they communicate, and this is any animal, is it more imagery you get? Do they show you things?
They do show me things. It is, it's half and half. So sometimes it's words and or numbers, and a lot of times it is pictures. So animals have been able to actually describe to me or show me who is with them on the other side. It's pretty fascinating. This one lady wrote me and wanted to know, I think, who her cat was with. I think it was her cat. And what I was shown was an older man with short gray hair, and I distinctly remember that all he had every picture the cat showed me was a red and black checkered shirt, and he always wore the same thing. And the cat was showing me that he only wore the same red and black checkered shirt over and over and over and over again. And I thought, okay, that's kind of crazy. So I wrote the woman back, and I told her, I said, I believe this is your your grandfather. And I said, you're kind of showing me that he only wore red and black checkered shirts. Does that make any sense to you? And she wrote back, and she said, yeah, that's all he had in his closet were red and black checkered shirts.
I'm going to get a different colour.
Yeah. Well, we like what we like, I guess.
This is true. Maybe his cat was going, oh, you need to get a different colour. So you can do this from a distance, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because it's all about energy. So the other thing that my books talk about is energy is the foundation for the paranormal. As I mentioned earlier, our memories, personality, and knowledge combined with the energy, the physical energies that are within our body. And then we make a decision to stay here earthbound, usually at a fixed location of our choosing. Or we cross over and become a spirit, and that enables us to go everywhere, anywhere, at any time around the world. So it's all about connecting with energy.
So obviously there's this, we know obviously as pet owners, there's this I don't know if you want to call it concept, because this is a question in the chat room, by the way. There's this, I don't know if you call it concept, but obviously we have this concept, or whatever you want to call it, that they cross over the Rainbow Bridge. So is there a Rainbow Bridge, Rob, or?
Well, that's a concept that we came up with to kind of ease our minds. So, there very well could be a rainbow bridge, but I think it's really more of a man-made concept because it scientifically, it's all about energy. We transition from our physical bodies to a ball of energy, and then we join the energies that run through the universe. I call that, you can call that heaven or Valhalla or paradise or Elysium, whatever you want to call the other side. I just call it the cosmos filled with energy. So, but yeah, a rainbow bridge was created to give us kind of peace of mind that our pets are going in a peaceful place. But we also do that with humans. And one thing I've noticed is that some mediums will say, well, everybody has a job on the other side. Well, I don't think that's true. I have never spoken, and I've been speaking to dead people since I was 13. That's a long time. And they've never said they had a job on the other side. Mediums will say that, I think, to make the other side, which is all energy, more understandable to us in the physical, because we really can't understand what the other side is. It's not a physical place where we sit down, where spirits go to bed at night and tuck each other in, or it's not a physical place. It's all energy. So sometimes mediums will talk about that to bring comfort to those who lost somebody. But it really doesn't work that way. Did I shatter something for you?
No.
You just asking.
Okay.
No.
That's very much how I see it. And I think that's the point of, I think that's why people humanize that concept, because it gives people a way of understanding it. Because that is, it's like time travel and stuff like that. When you start talking those concepts, it's mind-boggling, isn't it? When you start talking about transference of energy, and basically it's just, your soul goes on and becomes in this energetic field. It's hard, isn't it, for people to grasp sometimes that it's not like another world where, like you say, you sit down, have dinner, go to bed and do that. In the concept of jobs, I would say that as part of that energy, there would be a guiding force within that, and that's, if you want to call it a job, that's partly the job.
Yeah, well,
it's just a word for it.
It's all positive energy on the other side, certainly.
Or is it?
It actually is. Earthbound ghosts are the ones that have negative energy. So I can address the energy side for you, because I don't think we've gone into depth with that. So in my first book, I distinguish between ghosts and spirits. People usually use the words interchangeably, and they're really not. So they are the same entity. They're an entity of energy with memories, personality, and knowledge. But when we die, we choose to stay here on Earth in a fixed place for many different reasons. And that's what I call a ghost. And spirits are the ones that have crossed over. They just go over and join the rest of the energy and so forth. So both entities use energy. They use physical energy and emotional energy. They use heat, light, water, and electricity to strengthen enough to give us a message. Those are physical energies. But the difference is that earthbound ghosts use negative emotional energy. And I mean fear, anxiety, depression, anger. Those are things that fuel and empower ghosts to get strong enough to give us messages. So if you think about it, when you go into a haunted place, or you think a place that may be haunted, and you feel anxiety, you're fueling that ghost to get strong enough to move something or make a noise or tap you on the shoulder. Spirits, though, they rely on positive emotional energies like love, faith, and hope that brings them back. So there's a big difference in the energies that they use in the emotional spectrum. They use the same physical energies, but emotional energy is different. So there's also a danger, too, why people really need to cross ghosts over in their home. Even if the ghost has a good personality, what happens is they emit negative energy as well as absorb it. So by emitting negative energy, it causes the living people to get irritated with each other, to get angry with each other, to be depressed, and it's a vicious cycle. And because those people are showing those emotions, they just keep feeding the ghosts, and it goes around and around and around. So that's why people need to call a paranormal group and move these ghosts on. So even if they're good ghosts.
So animals would work in the same way, where you know, if they chose to stay around, they could emit bad emotional charges or good emotional charges if they chose to.
If they stay earthbound, they would emit negative energy. If they cross over, they're all positive.
Oh, right, I see.
Yeah.
I've not thought of it that way before.
No, neither had I, actually.
Well, I'm a scientist, so you're talking to a geek over here.
It makes it more understandable, though, doesn't it, Sam?
Yeah.
When put in that way.
Yeah, it's just it's just I've been on a lot of paranormal investigations too, and even though I've spoken to or communicated with ghosts who are good people, you know, they stayed behind maybe because they love their home. They still emit that negative energy. They still cause people in the home to be irritable with each other, and you know they don't mean to. But that's just the way it is. So they need to go.
And Carl is joined us now as well. So I'm going to drop out and let you and Sam and Carl chat. Thank you for letting me waffle on there. Thank you. Bye.
Hi guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Sorry I'm a bit late. Just a few issues at work and running a little bit late, should I say.
It's all right. These things happen, don't they, sir?
Oh, it's just been one of those things. Don't let me break the conversation, Sam. So carry on, and I'll try and catch up to speed and go from there. Okay.
Yeah. I'm just obviously mind blown by obviously what you've said, Rob, over the the energies, and obviously it explains a lot of why some locations you can go into as this energy, and some locations what you go into have that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the most important thing to realize, though, is that when someone decides to stay earthbound as a ghost, it's not a reflection of their personality, because they can have a great personality, but they emit negative energy because of the location they're in, because they stay earthbound. So, you know, it's location. So if they're a spirit, they have positive emotional energy. it's just fascinating to me that that's how it works. And I did a couple of paranormal investigations where the entity was so strong that people were just sick in the home. And other people were fighting with each other all the time, and they didn't understand why they were fighting with each other. They moved into a home, and there was a ghost there, and they just kept getting on each other's nerves. And they wanted to know what was going on. And then paranormal things started happening, and then they realized that they need some help. And once those ghosts were crossed over, their home life settled down. So, pretty interesting.
I don't know what to say. Sorry.
Well, so what I would say is the bottom line is if you suspected that there is a ghost in your home, that you should call a paranormal team to cross the ghost over, because it's really detrimental to your living relationship. You'll get on each other's nerves. But so I will tell you that probably 99% of pets cross over. Because we're talking about pets. So, and the reason they do is that our relatives and friends or whatever in spirit are waiting for them on the other side. Even our other pets that have crossed over before are waiting for them on the other side. So that's really important to know. I mean, when and our pets wait for us, by the way, on the other side. When my dad died in 2008, I went to his funeral, and at the cemetery, they have quick services at the cemetery, and I sensed my dad was standing there, and suddenly to the right hand side of me, I'll never forget this, it got really bright. Now, my parents lived in Massachusetts, and it was August, and it was gray and overcast in August, and I couldn't understand why it was so bright in one part of the sky. And I said something to my sister-in-law, and I said, "Do you see that bright light?" And she said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." I'm like, okay, so I looked again. It was an opening to the other side, and in the light, I could see my dad's mother and father, his baby brother who died at birth, my mother's parents, and my two family dogs and my dog Buzz. All three of them were lined up in the light, waiting for my dad to cross over. I'll never forget it. It's pretty emotional. Yep. So our pets are going to be there on the other side.
So obviously, with you going into that, what you've just said, so do you see Buzz around your home as well, or?
Do I personally see?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I've seen our dogs in spirit around the house from time to time, and usually they're just they look like a shadow. So people. So for the folks listening, let me just explain. There are a lot of ways that pets communicate from the other side. You can actually see them, usually out of the corner of your eye, and they usually appear as a shadow, or sometimes they appear in color. Pets can. You may hear nails on the floor. Like your dog walks on the floor, and you can hear their nails, or your cat walks on the floor. You can hear or meow, and it always sounds like it's coming from another room. That's because it takes a lot of energy from the other side. Have either of you? Have any of you experienced hearing anything from a pet that passed, like a bark or a meow or nails on the floor or anything?
Go on, Carl.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, with me personally, I've only ever had pets when I was very, very young. And the reason for that is my dad got to the point where we had pets and they died and we were upset, etc., etc. And he didn't want to go through life having that upset. So he not stopped us. He spoke to us and he made sure that we were aware And we never really had any pets going forward because of the upset of losing them. And I know that happens quite a lot with people out there. Like they're like children, they're like their babies and stuff like that. My dad didn't want to see us upset, so he sort of made the decision that pets were good, but he didn't want to see his family going through turmoil. So we never really had pets. I know, Sam, you've had dogs and stuff, so you're probably a better person to answer Rob's question about that, is because I've never really had pets since I've been older, so.
Yeah, so I've not really heard them, but I've seen them say out of the corner of your eye.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never heard them, if that makes sense.
You never heard them. Okay. Well, you may. And usually they start walking around in the evenings, like before we're trying to go to bed. And the reason they do that is the same reason they do it in the physical. I mean, they usually patrol around the house to make sure that everybody is safe. So whatever they did when they were alive, they'll also do in spirit. They behave the same way. People have often reported feeling a brush of cold air against their legs, and people who have had cats. So cats will often brush against them, and or cats will jump on the bed. They'll jump on the end of the bed, and then they'll curl up. And people have told me that they've felt little cat imprints on the end of the bed after their cat passed away. And they knew that their cat was back and visiting. Those are just some of the ways that cats will communicate with us.
Yeah. I must admit, I've been on investigations where I've been to locations where I've seen what I would describe as a cat or a dog in very strange places where we know there's no animals there at that particular moment in time when we're investigating. And we've had that moment, like you say, about cats brushing against your leg. You feel that, or you feel like them snuggling up to you if you're sat down on a bed, or et cetera, those sort of things. So I've experienced that sort of stuff. So it must be a point where when you've got a pet yourself, and it's a very, very important part of your life, it must be quite, it must help a lot with the process of losing that pet, to know they're still there if they're doing the same sort of things that they did when they were in the physical.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that it does. Because it also gives us something to be aware of. That those are the things that they're going to do from spirit too. So some of the other things that pets will do from the other side, they'll actually lead us to another pet that looks like them, and they may even make us smell something associated with them. One woman that I talked to said that after her dog passed away, her dog used to love to go run out in the back of her house where there was a stream, and come back in and always smelled like wet dog. Well, she said months after her dog passed away, she was in the house and she was thinking of her dog, and suddenly the house filled up with wet dog smell. Okay. So she knew that.
It's like a comfort thing, isn't it, really, then?
It is. So you stop by. Another dog, another story is that a woman's dog was failing, and she said she didn't know where the dog went, and she found the dog had gone outside in the backyard and had passed away quietly. Well, whenever she thinks of her dog, she'll suddenly smell roses wherever she is, whether it's in the car, whether it's at home, in a number of places. So that became her dog's symbol.
So it's obvious. So they're obviously the same signs as obviously if it was a human and they'd passed. Say if you thought of I love you, your family member or that, and it's something it'd remind you of them, and you get certain smells. So it's the same thing, isn't it?
It is. It's very much the same thing. So pets communicate much in the same manner that people do from the other side.
I don't know whether you guys have discussed that, so I do apologise. Obviously, I'm halfway through it. The thing that I'm fascinated about when you talk about when you communicate, or there's pet spirits and you're investigating, etc., is I know that when I've got a friend of mine who has a dog, and he'll know that somebody's about to knock on the door minutes before somebody actually does knock on their door, or if somebody's around the property, they'll know that. And I've also looked into cases where somebody would basically see something like a spirit of a cat when they had a cat. At the moment, they will get either some bad news or some good news. Have you had any experiences like that, Rob?
Sure. There have been a number of different stories that people shared along the same vein. So, yes.
Have you got any particular ones, or because I'm fascinated? That's the part of what you do. It fascinates me because of the whole the influences that I've had with animals and my friends who's had animals, and particularly this whole thing about they're there to either warn you or they come back to warn you of something, or and then all of a sudden you get that then you hear something or you get a phone call, etc. But they see this cat, whatever, dog, whatever it is, before these sort of events happen. And I'm just interested in if you've got any cases that you've looked into that this has happened on.
I've had actually a personal experience, and I wrote about it, I think, in my Pets 1 book. Okay. So my dog, my puppy Buzz, passed away. He was 7 months old when he was tragically killed by a car when his leash opened. And after he passed, I later adopted another Weimaraner. And her name is Dolly, and she's been on Paranormal Investigations with me, actually. But soon after I adopted Dolly, I was walking her and my roommate's dog, and I kept getting the feeling that I should not walk the normal way. And I realized afterward that it was Buzz that was nudging me to go to walk a different way. Normally, I would walk the dogs, and I would walk them along the street, the main street in the neighborhood, which is where Buzz was killed tragically. So as soon as I got out the door with Dolly and my roommate's dog, I had this feeling of dread go right through me. It was like a cold feeling, and I thought, I can't go on that street, and I don't know why I can't go on that street. And of course, I figured it out later. But so I decided to take the dogs through the woods. Well, as soon as I got into the woods, Dolly's leash opened, her clasp opened. And if I had gone the way I normally go, her clasp would have opened on the main street where Buzz was killed. So Buzz gave me that premonition and that warning sign not to go there because I needed to save Dolly's life. It was chilling to me.
Wow. That's amazing. It's those sort of stories that fascinate me about it. I've got a friend of mine who she connects with particularly cats, and there's been a couple of occasions where she's seen a cat or she's heard a cat and she's connected, and she's then basically realised this cat is connected with somebody else who is looking for their cat. And then she's got in touch with that person and directed them to where the cat has been either locked into a shed or locked into a room that the person was looking for, and it's been missing. So and I'm just like fascinated by that whole connection side of things, that you can actually then find another cat or find another animal in that way.
Yeah, that is pretty amazing. Especially if you're talking about tuning into living cats too. And living dogs, that seems to be kind of a different gift than I have, because that's more of an animal communicator, one that can tune into the living energy. Usually I can only tune into the energy of a pet that passed.
Right.
So
when you tune into the pets that have passed, do they give messages? Do you pick up on messages they want to give to their owners or the persons, or is it just images, or is it experiences, or do they actually physically give you messages? Sorry if you've already discussed this.
That's okay. No, we have discussed it, but yes, they often do have messages to give to their pet parents. A lot of times, one of the most common messages that they give me is thank you. To their pet parents who had to make the awful decision about letting them go, letting them cross over.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they send me that message, and all pet parents need to know this, is that they read, like I said, we talked about energy. They read our emotions. They read the energy that we give off. And they know that we're stressed. They know that we are sad, we are stressed, we don't want to do this, but we realize that it's for the best interest of them to put them out of pain. So they often thank us from the other side. And by the way, just so you know, I don't know if you've experienced this or anybody else has experienced this, but I've talked to a lot of people who have. Our dog Sprite, when it was his time in 2013, July, he had not been eating, he had not been drinking, he couldn't use his back legs, he was just ready to go. He was tired, he was old, and so forth. And when we had to make the decision, and we were driving him to the vet's office, and he had a tumor that burst in his nose, by the way. So that was the end of it. We really had to make that decision. I took his favorite treats just on a whim. He did not stop eating those treats all the way to the vet's office. And that made me feel awful because I thought, oh my gosh, we're making the wrong decision. He is not ready to go. It turns out that when our pets understand that we make that decision, they get excited. So your pet will show a burst of energy just before you take him to that fateful time. So don't feel guilty about it. They just want to show you that they're excited that we finally get it, that they need to go.
So they know the time's right, and it's that time to let them go, and it's taking them out of pain, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing.
So the one thing I want to mention that, people, all you have to do is really be aware of what's going on around you. And you can pick up on a sign in your own home. A friend, Catherine, who lives in California, wrote me and told me that her English setter named Murphy had passed 2 days before Christmas. And she was really devastated about his passing, of course. And during the Christmas week, she said she had walked into a room, and as she walked in the room, one ornament fell off the tree. It was the ornament of an Irish setter, which is what her dog was. Fell off the tree exactly when she walked in the room. And she knew that Murphy was there knocking that ornament off to let her know that Murphy was still very much around. So it's all about paying attention.
Just paying attention to even the smallest thing. Mm-hmm. And that smallest thing could mean comfort to yourself that's basically just notice that smallest thing.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's the same about the same about with animals. I think that's the same about if you lose parents or close people. I think a lot of people will experience those little things. They might not realize it at the time, or they might not even realize it over time. But there are little signs that people will get just to say, I'm still here. I'm okay, etc. It could be the most silliest things, like the favourite song. As soon as you turn the radio on, a song comes on, or
Absolutely.
the whole thing, the famous thing with the feather and stuff like that, or things in the clouds, and it's all those little subtle things that you just might just think, oh, that's just a coincidence. But I personally do, and the only reason I do because I've lost both my parents, and these little things are like that sort of just that little thing. And I think with animals, and I think with humans, that they do let you know that certain things are everything's okay. I'm okay now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they all really want us to know that they're okay, and that they're able to visit in spirit from time to time, and they like to also tell me who they're with on the other side, which is a comfort.
Well, if they're with, say, a parent or somebody that you knew or close to you, that with that other person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So one of my friends lost his cat last summer, and he asked if his cat's name is Buddy, and he said he was devastated, of course, that Buddy had passed, and Buddy passed when he was away on vacation. He didn't understand what happened, and I was able to figure out what happened because Buddy shared the information with me. Buddy made me feel acute kidney failure, and my friend understood what was happening, why that happened. So he said, well, can you tell me who he's with on the other side? And I said, he's telling me that there's somebody that is a contemporary to you, someone the same age, and his name is Dave. And he said that Dave was very excited to be there for Buddy, and Dave is somebody that you know directly, and he's your same age, but he passed a long time ago. So my friend wrote me back, and he lives in Florida, and he said, Dave was my best friend in college, and he passed away when we were in college. It's like, oh my gosh. So, these things are even shocking to me. That even, a cat can come through and tell me the name of the person that he's with on the other side. They don't have to have met somebody to meet them on the other side. They don't have to have met them in the physical.
Well, I suppose that's like anybody that passes over. It doesn't mean that they're going to be with whoever. They're going to meet whoever's out over the other side. So that's got to be the same with pets as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
it's just a really fascinating subject. And sadly, we are coming up to the hour.
Oh my gosh!
I know. Don't worry, Rob. We'll be getting you on again. This is going to be a regular feature for us. Looking at the chat room. I'm only coming halfway through. Looking at the chat room, it's a lot of people are interacting in the chat room, and we get a lot of like messages and stuff about this particular subject. So don't worry, you're going to be a regular feature on the show. Every so often we'll get you on, because I think there's more to this subject that we can look at.
Sure.
And maybe at some point might ask for questions and see if you can help people, help the listeners that are out there.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Well, that is coming up to the hour. I would just personally like to thank, and I do apologise to all the listeners who were expecting my dulcet tones at the top of the hour, but life gets in the way sometimes, and I made it on as quick as I can. But I personally want to thank Rob for coming on again, and I'm glad that this time it wasn't your internet that was causing issues and the fun, because since I've been in, we've just had some doozies of lightning storms and thunder going on. Luckily, my internet is holding out. But personally, thank you, Sam. Or pass on Sam's thanks as well. Thanks for coming on again. We will definitely get you on again. Just quickly to wrap it up, what is coming up for yourself? What's coming up for you at the moment?
There's quite a few things, actually. First of all, if people want to get a hold of me, they can just type in petspirits.com. That's probably the easiest one. I just released a new book. I just published my new book called Kindred Spirits, about how I befriended a spirit that I've never met who died in 1996, and he's become like a best friend to me over the last 15 years. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Over the next couple of months, I have a lot of appearances that I'm doing at animal rescues here in the U.S., up and down the East Coast, as fundraisers, talking about how pets communicate from the other side.
We'll post all those links in the chat room. We'll post all those links on social media. We will make sure that everybody that listens to the station knows what you're up to, because the amount of people that have messages since we announced you were coming back on, and all the questions and stuff, which we haven't got enough in to put all those in 1 hour. So we will get this. And I'm going to say this personally, Rob, is when you find a guest that has a subject which produces so much interest, we have to get them coming on and getting on, because this subject is very, very close to a lot of people's hearts.
Sure.
So what you do personally, and I've bought couple of your early books, and I've just started reading one of the books at the moment. I've only literally I received it the other day, so I'm going to continue reading that. So I personally want to thank you for coming on, and don't worry, listeners, Rob will be back on in the near future. We'll get him back on as well. So personally, I would like to thank Rob for coming on. I'd thank Sam for holding the fort by the time I came back on. We will be back next Thursday between 9 and 10 o'clock. I'm not 100% sure who, because as you can probably tell, I'm a little bit at 2 and 8 at the moment, so I don't know who we're going to be talking. We will be back on next Thursday with an amazing guest, as we've had this evening. So once again, I would like to thank Rob. And if you miss anything, any of the shows this week, every single night, Monday to Friday, 9 till 10 o'clock, you can go over to the various different places, find it, listen to it. But remember, like, share, and subscribe. All the shows are on playback. Once again, Rob, thank you very much. And to all the listeners, thank you very much. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And if there's anything you want us to cover in future shows, or even if you want to come on, drop us a message on the social media sites, and we will there. And one last plug. Obviously, everybody knows that last week we were announced as the official radio show for Sage Paracon in November. Tickets are still available. We will be announcing in the next couple of weeks interviews with the speakers, and we will also be doing specials as well. So keep a lookout for that. But for now, it's coming up. I've run over. I'm gonna get into trouble by Kerry. I'd like to put my love out to everybody. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.